Good evening, everybody. It is daylight and it's 8 o'clock in the evening, although it's a bit of a cloudy daylight, it must be said. However, it's spring, it's British summertime. I'm really happy and I just wish we could stay on British summertime forever and ever and ever. I'm not a great fan of GMT, it must be said. That's Greenwich Mean Time. Anyway, hello, how are you all? Hope everything's okay. I'm still just, I have started, I've decided I'm going to show you how I make the tabby cat canes, because I just think it's fascinating how it works. So I'm just going to just make a start, because this is all going to be sort of more just blending and cutting and reconstituting and putting back together. And if I have a chance, once I've made up the cane, then I'll make a little cat, a little lilac one. Now, of course, I've made the little pink cats, and normally in my little OCD, mild OCD, but in my OCD way, I would normally start with pink and work my way through to the other end of the spectrum. But today I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start from the other end and go to lilac and work my way back into the middle. So after lilac, I will make a blue one, and then a mint green one, and then a lemon one, and yes, and I'll need to make a peach one too, because the ginger cats that I've made so far are not peach coloured cats. However, so basically the idea behind these tabby cats, and I hope you're well, by the way, and again, I'm going to do my best to sort of to read comments, but I am reading them sideways on my phone, and I'm looking forward to basically doing the switcheroo in the morning when I can put the Brew and Blether the way it should be. It is a bit annoying that Facebook hasn't really got to grips with that, and you can't make sideways or landscape live videos anymore. Go figure. Who knew? And who knows why. Anyway, so I may well be talking to myself as well, because I usually have a slow connection when I'm doing these events. But it's always a pleasure to speak to you, because I have, apart from saying goodbye to Enrique this morning, I've not spoken to anybody today. It's just been one of those very sort of quiet, working away in the background sort of days, in a good way. I haven't been outside at all. I have, if anybody has ever had plantar fasciitis or plantar heel pain or anything like that, then you will understand that I am not a happy bunny at the moment. I've had this before, like about sort of 3 or 4 years ago, and had insoles put in my feet, in my shoes, and that's been fine because I walk for miles. I love going for walks. I just set out from the mill and I'll just walk in, sort of any direction, and usually do sort of 4 or 5 miles at least each day. And I just can't at the moment. It's just too painful. So I'm going to see a physiotherapist tomorrow and see whether I can, I've been doing exercises, but they're not shifting it. Anyway, why am I telling you all this? You don't need to know any of this, sorry. But it has meant that I'm not going out for walks at the moment, which is annoying. I'd love to. I mean, it started to rain a bit. We've had a really gorgeous run of good weather, very sunshiny, and the blossom's been out and everything's blooming and it's wonderful, and I haven't been able to get out, so very frustrating. However, anyway, back to these, I'm going to make quite a small cane for this. And the idea is to make 2 contrasting, like a darker lilac, which will be the main, it's just plain lilac, unadulterated, and then a lighter shade, so that then the lilac will show through in stripes once I cut the thing. So that's not quite light enough. I think I just need to make it a little bit more contrasty. So forgive me while I now do another little bit of rolling about. I hope it's not moving the camera too much. I don't think it is, but anyway. However, there is good news, because I now have a new pair of varifocal glasses, so I'm not having to peer quite so much over over the edge of my glasses and sort of having my nose stuck right into what I'm doing, it makes a nice change, I must say. This getting older lark thing is a bit of a pain in the neck, isn't it? Quite literally sometimes as well. I'm going to be, it's my birthday next month on the 10th of May, and I will be, and I have to always think about it, I'm going to be 54, I think. But, you know, I'm still 25 inside, really. You know, and 25 is quite an old age, the way that I feel these days. However, I am going to be in my mid-50s, and things are starting to ache and get a little bit painful, and I just need to stretch a little bit more. And it's just, I guess it's just what happens. You start to wear out a little bit, really. But thankfully, my hands are still okay. So after all these years, 16 years of rolling and kneading and, you know, just working with them sort of for 12 hours plus a day, they're still fine, touch wood. That was me touching wood, touching my head. So fingers crossed anyway. Right, so there we go. That's a little bit paler. Because the other thing is it's not entirely clear until you do a test sample to see how the clay bakes. Sometimes some of the clays, some of the tints that they use mean that the clay can bake a little darker or a little, it's mostly darker than it looks when it's raw. That happened actually with the ginger cats. Did you see the little time-lapse video that I did, or the stop motion film I should say? We've been watching, oh, it's been so much fun. Those of you in the UK, in fact, most of you, well, anybody really, if you have seen any of the Wallace and Gromit films, then you'll be aware of Aardman Creations and the chap behind it, who's just wonderful, Nick Aardman, who's just a bit of a hero of mine. And he's done all these wonderful, yeah, that's better contrast if you can see that. I'm just going to condition this now a bit, so I'm not just putting raw clay in. Yeah, so Nick Aardman of you know, Wallace and Gromit fame, they went on the studios, because there's this stable of amazing sculptors who just make little creatures out of plasticine. Well, they're actually quite large, in fact, much larger than mine. And then, you know, they have little faces for them, and they do these wonderfully funny films. And there's a series of them which you can watch on Facebook, on YouTube, sorry. Creature Comforts, which I think started off, and do correct me if anybody knows otherwise, I think they started off as being adverts for British Gas, you know, just sort of short, funny films where the creatures basically are speaking the words of the great British public, basically. Is fabulous. And just, it's just very, very funny. It's hilarious. So we've been watching all of those recently and making me laugh very much. So I think that inspired me to do a little stop motion film, because it's been a long time since I last did one. Right, so now having conditioned this, ideally I'd probably let it rest for a little bit before I cut it into its little sections, chop it up finely, but can't really do that at the moment, or else we'd just be sitting here for the next 20 minutes and not doing very much at all, except for me blethering away, which apparently is, well, that's the headline, isn't it? That's kind of what I do for, this is what I do. You get what you get what it says on the tin, basically. Right, so this is actually how the mole fir canes start out as well, and this is kind of what gave me the idea. But with the mole canes, when you're making furry canes, and actually any colour of fur, it's not just for moles, but I've done them for badgers as well, and sometimes for sort of brownish, you know, if I'm making any creatures which are kind of brown in colour. Anyway, so I start off with the mole cane with just a blend of different shades of greys and blacks, and, you know, mostly greys. I don't really go with black as much as I can. But shades which are close enough but not identical to each other. And I'm just doing the same with the pale lilac now, which has rested for a little bit, so that should be a little bit easier to manage. Yeah, so it's just, this is the starting process. I just basically stop a few processes before the end with the fir canes, and I'll talk you through it whilst I'm making them. But with the fir canes, what I do is just carry on rolling the resultant sheet through the pasta machine until the fir itself is much finer than what I will be doing. Because this is, actually I still have a slice of the grey tabby cat that I made after the last Brew and Blether and before this one. But you can, I don't know if you can see that very well, there's like big chunks of blacks. And because of the way that I put it through the pasta machine, it stretches out into more of a stripe, even though it's just a little cube of clay. So what I'm doing now is just roughly mixing. And what sometimes helps with this, actually, because you can see, or maybe you can't, but it's clumping together because it's quite warm in here. So I'm just going to dab some corn flour on my fingers, which is a great anti-releasant. Releasant? I'm not sure what, but if you're ever needing not, for 2 bits of clay not to stick together, then corn flour is the way to go. And I keep a little tub just next to my desk, my workbench, just in case I ever need it. And in fact, if Nick is on the call, when she first gave me the idea for doing the marble effect for the little sugar mice and cats and all the rest of it, which I must do more of, when I was mixing up, and again it started off with this process, mixing up different colours of translucent clay, but trying to get that not to stick together was just impossible. So yeah, used a lot of corn flour for that. Anyway, yeah, but so back to Wallace and, why was I telling you about Wallace and, oh, the stop motion, that was it. So there's a really, you can watch virtually all of them, I think, on YouTube. So it's well worth going and having a look if you haven't already, because they're just like sort of little 10-minute, short films, little interviews with people that have then been put into the voices, or they've been put into creature voices. So it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I am in so much awe of that, of the mind behind that, and the skill of all the individual sculptors who can do that. And I often wondered, I mean, there was a time which I thought, ooh, could I go and work there? I wonder, could that be? But no, I'm very much happier working on a very small scale. And all these people have got their degrees and all the rest of it, and I don't have that sort of thing, nor do I want it. Anyway, right, so as I've been blethering away there, what I've done is just roughly push them into a little pile. Quite a lot of force involved in this, and you'll see on the other side that it looks more like sort of granite, or just like little nubbles of rock. I'm sure there's a better way of saying this. And the idea, I'm just going to roll that a little bit because I'm now going to put it through the pasta machine. But the trick with this, and the same with the mole fir cane, is to always put it through in the same way, because every time it goes through the pasta machine, you're pulling out each of these blocks and making them into more stripes. So that's the idea. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go to the pasta machine, which is very close to me, and put it through on the thickest level, and you see how that has already started to stretch out, basically. And it's the same on both sides, but because it's so random as well. Now the trick then is to cut it in half, not line up the edges. If I did it that way, then it's mirror images and it just looks very odd. So I'm trying not to, trying to make sure that they are separate, and that creates much more of a random pattern. So just going to put it through the pasta machine again. There we go, and you can see it's starting to stretch out even more. But the bit that we're interested in is the edge, because this ultimately will be built up into the cane. And you see that's, I'm just, yeah, if I did it that way, that would be mirror images, and we don't want that. And I'm just offsetting a little bit as well. Now I think I'll just put it through one more time. I think with the pink one, I only put it through twice, and I think it makes a difference. So the idea now is to stack up and make a cane, basically. Yeah, you see how they're very fine, but they are stripes, basically. So I'm just going to cut and stack on top of each other. And it doesn't really matter which way it goes, because I'm going to sort of trim it all, and it'll all be squished out anyway. I can stack these back onto each other. Yep, that's not too bad. And then I'm just going to flob alert, flob alert. See, even doing this kind of work, there's always flob. So now I'm just kind of squashing it into more of a, just shaping it into more of a stubby rectangle, I suppose. But you can see how that, the stripes it's very chunky. It's not at all blended at this stage. And that's what I want, basically. Because the idea will be, it's tabby stripes, you know. Now this is a small cane. Usually the canes that I make for the other, that I've made before are a good deal bigger than this. But this is just to, so we've got an idea of what it's going to look like. Because the magic really happens when I put the thicker slices. So I'm going to slice this into thicker slices, and then put them, put those slices through the pasta machine, which will make the stripes even more kind of thicker and diffuse. It's magic. I should probably just stop wittering and just show you instead. The one thing which I'm going to do now, because tabby cats, I've done a lot of research, I must say. I've looked at a lot of cat markings over the years. And there was a wonderful website which actually showed all the tabby markings, all the different kinds. As though, now it was a bit horrible. These were just illustrations, I will stress, pains to stress. But they looked as though they were skinned cats, okay. So, but that was a brilliant way of showing how the markings went, you know. So it looked like a tiger skin. Sorry, I know it's really gross. But it actually was a brilliant way to show that the center, the spine, you've got sort of like a row of stripes, broken stripes coming down, and then the stripes are coming off on either side, and then you've got a few stripes going up over the top. And it was just a very useful way to see how the markings were, but I know it was a bit grim because it was like a skinned cat. But anyway, lots of them. I think if you actually just do a search for tabby cat markings or something, it's one of the top searches anyway. So what I've done, long story short, I've cut it in half and then slightly curved the edges and pushed it back together again at a slight angle, and basically that will help to create a sort of a central point for the spine. Who knew that it would be so like complex and methodical? Right, so I am now cutting fairly thick slices. These are about maybe 1/2 centimetre, maybe not quite as much as that. But each one of these slices should theoretically come out with really good tabby markings. Right. You see it? Oh, I love this. This is great. Right, so you see how you can see a definite line down the middle and sort of tabby-like stripes on either side. Now, it's very, very thick at this point, but this should hopefully make up 5 or 6 lilac tabby cats. So I'm now going to start the process of reducing this down. I'm going to move these out the way because I will need space. And actually, I can now I'm going to use this scrap. Nothing's wasted. This is another thing that I love about what I do. I never waste anything, which is why I always have so much clay lying out, because I really don't like to waste anything. So I need to basically have 6 grams is the basic core that I use. That's how much clay that I use when I am covering it with a slice of the cane. So that is going to be a cat. And I'll just give it a little squish together. It doesn't have to be well blended. I usually just use scrap clay for this, and it doesn't have to be the same color of the clay that you're using. I mean, it's magic, basically. Again, I will say how much I love polymer clay. It's just the most amazing material. And because I'm using it, because this is opaque, basically, there's just no see-throughs. There's got no element of translucency to it. So that means that even when I'm thinning this out, you know, to a really, really thin, you know, a thin sheet of it, and then covering this core of clay that I'm working on now, you can't see what's beneath it. It doesn't show through. It's magic. It's just magic. So, I mean, this is the basic premise for all the wee creatures that I do who are, you know, who are millefiori. So I kind of just create a little cat shape. So he's now ready to get his little tabby cat coat on. I've just realised actually I've not cut out any cheeks for him anyway. Right, so I'm going to take this thick slab and just run it through different ways. You know, first of all, I'm doing it sort of slightly long ways. Sorry, this is terribly exciting because you can't actually see. In fact, I'll come back and show you each stage. So what I've done here, and it's not quite gelled together, so I have just rolled that through the second setting of the pasta machine long ways. So this is to get some length to it. And the next stage will be, I'll probably do that once more actually, just to make sure that's well and truly welded back together. It's not an exact science by any means. So I'm going to now put that on the third setting. Again, you see how it just makes it into stripes? It's just magic. It's just absolutely, it's magic. Witchcraft. There you go. Witchcraft polymer clay. That's what I do basically. It's still pretty thick though. It's certainly still too thick to use as a veneer for that. It would just, yeah, far too thick. So the next stage now, having got, I like that. That's a good sort of split of stripes that we have there. But what I'm going to do now is roll it through, put it through this way. So put it through on the long edge rather than on the short edge. That's the way I was putting it through before. So now I'm going to put it through on this ledge, which will help separate out these stripes and make them wider. Again, I shall not talk, but I shall show. Now I've got to do this much more slowly than before. You see, it's now starting to pull these stripes apart, and you can see the center. This is the back of the cat, basically. But I will. This is just for the main core covering it. I'll do the same again, but this is for the forehead. So tabby cats particularly, they have like stripes down the front of their head, so over this bit. So the stripes will go that way. But over the head, they've got stripes coming here and feeding down into the face. This is where the face is going to be. So I will do this process again with one of the other canes, but we'll do it much more this way round. So I have all these sort of thin, long stripes, and they'll go over the top of the head like that. So there you go. But I'm going to carry on with this one for now and make it a little bit thinner yet. So I'm about three settings from the thinnest at the moment. I'm doing it very carefully because if it's too thin, it will tear and it's really annoying. So now you see how the purple has it's wonderful. You know, you never know how it's going to turn out. And actually, because I'm going thinner, some of the little lumps or some of the little nuggets of colour have actually, you know, they're now fading out even more so. You know, they're not as well defined as they were to begin with. So I think once more, I'm going to do it once more that way to give it a bit more width. And I'll do it to the second thinnest setting rather than to the thinnest setting, because sometimes it just breaks and you don't want it to break. But this is pretty thin. It's not as thin as it could be, and actually what I could do is actually just start pulling it out a little bit. In fact, that's what I'll do. This is often a better way of thinning it down, but you've got to be very careful and very gentle with it, and you're just kind of teasing it teasing it out. You can see it's well and truly welded down the center bit anyway. Right. So, yeah. That's probably about as thin as I could get it on the pasta machine anyway. And I can just decide which sections are going to be slightly wider than others. The control of it is fabulous. Right, excellent. Okay, so I think we're good. We now have a lilac stripy tabby cat thing. And what I will do now, so this cat is facing forwards. I don't know how I know that, but the cat is facing forwards. So this is its back. And this is where it's kind of more, well, it's kind of artful, I suppose, but it gets a bit messy until all the edges are smoothed in and all the rest of it. So I'm keeping the clay as straight as I can. Obviously, I'm trying to sort of blend it round a core, which will not work up to a point. Now, this is where I start trimming. In fact, how I often trim is actually just with a pair of scissors. And nothing gets wasted as well. So I'm going to keep that bit of stripy. That's going to be, that could be a very good section for the over the forehead bit. Oh, you know what I'm trying to say. Sorry, brain is just, this is actually quite a complex bit. I'm just, so forgive my my momentary kind of, I'm not really knowing what I'm saying. Right, so I want to keep that central, that's the very back of the cat. So I want to keep that well defined, and I don't want to lose too much of it. So actually I'm just folding in the corners so that I'm preserving the stripes, you know, because if I mash them too much together, you can see there's a little tear there. It just doesn't work. So trimming the edge. And these are just normal little, you know, I've had these scissors for absolutely ages. The idea is not to have too much bulk and excess clay. See how there's a few, giving it a little bit of a haircut. There's just a few excess bits of clay there. There we go. And this is going to be the tummy, which will be covered by the white tummy and the cheeks, obviously. Now, because it's so thin, excuse me, because it's so thin, it sticks to itself like nobody's business. It's such a pain in the neck. So, but I do want to cover all of the clay, you know, the bottom as well, even though you never really see that. So actually what I'll do is again pinch the edges. Oh, excuse me, I do have a cup of tea waiting for me. I'm going to have to go and have a slurp in a minute. And then it's just, and avoiding air bubbles as well. I didn't mention air bubbles, but yes, when you're covering a core of clay with a very thin sheet of clay, the potential for air bubbles is phenomenal and a bit annoying. Anyway, right. Whew. Okay, so there we go. That's the basics. And the thing which I have to do now is to blend the core, which I do with a combination of my clay shaper, just the edge of this. You can see how well worn it is. Because if you roll it on either side, applying a bit of pressure, I could roll this between my fingers, and I do this with the moles. So once I have covered, it's usually just a circle, like a sphere of clay that I use for the moles, and then I can just roll it between my hands, and that blends all the clay in perfectly. But with cats, because I am trying to preserve the shape, so I preserve the markings, it means that all the gaps in the clay, I've got to make sure that they're blended in as carefully as possible. And you'll see, I mean, some of the cats, if you ever see one of my millefiori creatures, you may well find like the odd seam which arguably shouldn't be there, but I do my best to make sure that they are as well covered as possible. So, and then I just use the glass to give it a nice smooth finish. Again, without worrying too much about distorting the stripes. If I rolled this in between my hands at the moment, the stripes would go everywhere, and I particularly just want to keep that wonderful, the back of the spine stripes. I want to keep them intact. So the next thing will be to put his head stripes on. Actually, I won't be able to make all of this cat tonight, but I did want to show you the process of of actually how do I make the cane. It's not an exact science, and I love that every single one is different. And in fact, actually, we're almost at where we were at this time at the last Brew and Blether, actually, wasn't it? Because I had 4 of these little cats all lined up, and then I was just putting their ears and their faces and their cheeks and their whatever's on. Right, so actually what I'll do is will I use this one? I know I want one with sort of quite regular stripes. Okay, that's quite a good one. You see how I've got sort of quite a few which are just very straight, plain. So I'm going to roll this through. This is just to get the stripes over the top of the head. The actual ears I will just mash up. I'll blend together some of the scrap clay and then make the ears, because as I think I said, if anybody was on the chat last time, on the video chat, what's very helpful is it's not helpful at all, for goodness sake. Sorry, I'm just multitasking as well, not doing it very well. No, cat's ears, the back of tabby cat's ears are not stripy, which surprised me, but they're not. So that actually makes life easier. So I can just basically mix up this clay, make sure it's all one color, which I would rather do than use the background color, because that's going to be too pale. But the blend of the two is going to be a nice contrast. It's going to be just a mid lilac color, basically. So right, back to this. So I'm going to just keep rolling it, but more long ways than sideways, which is what I did before. And you see that's elongating the stripes a little bit more than it was. If I started doing it on the long edge now, it would all start to separate a bit more, and I don't want that. So I'll just keep, you see it's getting longer and longer, and I just want to see which edge I'm going to use. I'll get it as thick as it's going to be. There we go. I think that's probably long enough. You see, it's just, yeah, my pasta machine is a very trusted old friend. Right, so this will actually be the center, the forehead stripes for all of these lilac cats. So I'm going to just do to about there, move it to one side, and because I only need those stripes, so I'm going to basically cut away the rest of the clay that I won't need, and that will go back into one of the next core of clay that I will use. All right, and because I'm using the stripes from the actual from the cane itself, it's all going to blend better than you might think. Not an exact science, as I say, but still pretty good. Right. So I'll do most of this, the main blending I'll do with my fingers. My thumb is fully healed, yay. You can barely see a scar now, actually. It's like, well, wait a minute, there was a lot of blood. There should be more of a scar than that. But I'm very grateful that I heal quickly. This is good. Right, so, and then just to make sure that the edges are smoothly in. And the other good thing about using the metal to blend it, I'm actually pulling it down, and that helps it not look as though it's just stuck on the top. So there we go. Now, I know he looks a bit of a mess just now, but he's shaping up very nicely. I can tell you that for nothing. And again, just making sure. If I do have little sort of glass coasters are very good for actually smoothing things out, but it's enough for me to be working on my glass table. Right, how are we doing for time? 25 to 9. Right, okay. Well, I think what I'll do is, because he never looks very much at the moment, he needs to have his tummy in his face, and I have sort of refined that process a bit since I first did one. So I'm just going to take a little bit of white clay. Just this is all small scale. I mean, when I'm doing the production line, as it were, I'm doing this on a much larger scale. But for the purposes of tonight, we certainly want to at least put on his tummy and his face, so you can see what that's going to look like. So I'm just conditioning a little bit of white clay. And it's important to condition this. If you put it through the pasta machine before it's broken down a little bit, it just gets a bit messy. So, in fact, it goes like that. There you go. This is what happens, you see. It cracks. That's what I was desperately trying to avoid with my other one. Not such an issue with the white bib, because I can just sort of, I'm not having to marry up stripes, that's what I'm trying to say, but I'm failing miserably, I think. So there we go. That can just blend back in together. And then I need, what size do I use for this? I use a round cutter, this one, I think. Yes. Or is it too big? So this is the thing, is sort of trying to remember exactly what I do. Right, we'll do that one. And then it's more blending and pulling and cutting and trimming and making sure that it's the right sort of shape, basically. So I'm tucking in the edges, and then I'm just easing out very carefully so that he's got an elongated tummy. And you see it's going to stretch there, you see. So, and then it's just a question of cutting out the edges and making sure that he's got, you know, where his marking should go, is what I'm trying to say. Now I often use these cutters to make sure that it's an equal size on either side. That's his forehead marking. And then I usually just cut this bit out by hand. So, because cats, they have that wonderful sort of triangular edges, which comes out, goes in and then comes back out again. So this is much more by eye, just judging. There we go. And then take out the scrap bits of clay. Right. And making sure, just tucking those back in again. And making sure that there's no little bits of scrap clay kicking about. One of the things which marks out, I suppose, a good design or a good polymer clay artist or whatever is the finish that you get. I won't cut corners, you know. I just want to make sure that it's as well finished as possible and that it doesn't have any loose bits. I'm only human, so I don't always manage, but I do my best. So the idea here is just to make sure that it's as symmetrical as it can be, that there are no rough edges, that it's smoothed down, that there's no bits of flob. And you can see, so like the cat, that's the top of the cat, that's the cat cheeks, and this is his tummy. So that, ladies and gentlemen, comes from a circle. And then, So it's going to cover this. This was just, I wasn't worried about this not being particularly cat-like, because I'll just make sure I'm matching this up with his center line. And that can go down a little bit. And again, making sure that there are no air bubbles, because they are just curses on the air bubbles. And I'm not really flattening the center portion, because that's part of his tummy. But I want his cheeks to be in. And not spread out too far, actually. Sometimes I'll want it to be spread out more thinly. But that's quite a good shape. And then I can also, by rolling it back in, I can kind of adjust the shape of the corner of his tummy as well. Right. So there we go. Right. And I'm just going to give him a little bit of a wash. But you can see he's starting to appear. I love it. I love it when they just, you can start to see their personalities happening, even if it's still just a little lump of clay with a few stripes on it. But it's, magic. And what I'm doing now is actually making his tummy a little flatter. So he's standing up straight, but he's got a sort of, almost like a triangular bit. So his bum sticks out a little bit at the back. And of course there's Flob. Of course. Right. Now, do we have to, actually it's 8:45. I shouldn't keep you too long. There's a bit of work more to do on him, obviously. The next stage will be to cut the ears and put the eyes in. Actually, we could probably do that. The other thing I want to do is give him his cheeks, but that's what's it going to be? What's it going to be first? Right. Okay. Actually, we're just going to blend up these little lumps of clay. This is how parsimonious I can be about keeping scraps of clay, but nothing, I tell you again, nothing ever gets wasted. So I'm just, because it's such a small part, such a small piece of clay, I am just folding it in on itself. This is how I blend colours for a very small bit. And it doesn't take too long. Particularly with pastel colours, they blend very quickly, which is good. So yeah, oh, you see there's a little line there, or maybe you can't see, I don't know. Right, and okay, that'll do. So that's as blended as it needs to be. So I'm now just going to put it through the second thickest setting of the pasta machine. Go. And this is just to cut out the ears. So, oh, I just need my ear cutter. So that's one. I need to do this on the side. This is how small it gets. Sometimes I do work at ridiculously small levels. And there's another one. And then we just need to, I'll use this little scrap bit of clay from the tummy. Yeah, nothing is wasted. This is to cut out the inside of the ears. Actually, this is probably not the best ones to use, but hey, we're under the cosh. Because I once I've done this, I think I'll let you go after this, and I'll finish off the wee cat in the morning. So that's one bit. And this is actually quite a thickly rolled out bit of white. So I'm just stretching it a little bit just to make it a little thinner. And I do like to work from a clean edge for the cat's inner ears. And because this is going to be the perfect mirror for that, they need to be a little bit smaller. So that's why I trim off a corner. And then, so many bits and bobs floating about here. Just creating the indentation for the inner ear. These clay shapers, they are absolutely my essential tools. I have a handful of tools which I would be lost without. And for anybody on the call last time, I think I had dropped one of my cutters. I managed to find it again. It's always a heart-stopping moment though. All right. And then just laying that in there. Oops. And laying that in there. There we go. So by indenting it to begin with, it means that it's not standing out proud. And then I push it back in and it works well. This is many, many years of trial and error and working out what the best way is. So these are just plain lilac ears, but that's just the way that they need to be. It does make life easier, I have to say as well. Right, so now I shall just trim these at a slight angle because it's going to be sitting on a domed shape of the head. And I'm not going to glue them on yet because I want to, or fix them permanently, let me put it that way. I want to make the cheeks first and work out the best position for them. But there you go. So he's nearly finished. But yes, I need cheeks for him and eyes. Oh, maybe I have to do the eye box though. I do have to do the eye box. Are you happy just to stay on for another couple of minutes and I'll make his chops because I don't want to just leave him like finish like that. Right, okay, sorry if you have to go, I completely understand, but I can't just leave him like that, poor wee thing. He needs to be able to smell and he needs to be able to see. Right, okay, so just conditioning another bit of white clay for his chops, his cheeks, and I will put this through this second. I think that's the one. I should probably write all these sort of formulas down so that I know what I'm doing each time. That's going to be too thick. This will be on the third. Right. And then my little Kemper cutter and one more thin bit for his chin. So cutting it at an angle because his cheeks will go on top of it. This is it cut upside down. So there we go. That's a little too big, but I can trim it down. Better to be too big than too small. All right. Now these are very thin chops by standards, you know. I'm just going to trim that down a little bit more. That's pretty much secured in. And then lightly pressing down to preserve the shape. Now, did I give them a purple nose? Did I give my other cats, the pink cats, did I give them pink noses? Because I have a feeling then, because these are rainbow fatty cats, they're not really realistic cats. Well, not much. So I think he needs to have just a little lilac nose, because that will be very cute, of course. So I've just taken a tiny little dollop, and that's too big. Move that out, pinch a tiny bit off it, and try again. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's better. There we go. So that's his nose, and cheeks, and chin. And it's going to go there. Oh. So cute, so cute. Right, and then, this is why I like to mark them all in place before I actually put in the eyes. There we go. And then I can take that off, and I can take his ears off. But I've just spotted some flob on his nose. And that actually helps to make his nose look a little bit more feline. Right, the moment you've all been waiting for is not actually going to be that eye box. I'm going to use 2 mil beads. This eye box, yay! We have the eye box. I had a minor spill of eyes the other day. It was a bit alarming. I'm still finding them in the clay because, you know, I've shown you my workbench is rather cluttered with old clay. So, right. Now I've gone for quite large 2 mil beads because of course they all come in different sizes. I have used the 2.6 to 2.8 ones, but I think these ones are going to be a better fit. However, it is all a bit trial and error. No, they're good. You don't want them too big. Again, it's amazing how just even the fraction, you know, they're fractionally too large or fractionally too small. It just ruins the whole effect. They just look odd. But that's quite a good, a good size diameter for them. Right, very carefully putting the eyes back, keeping them out of harm's way, and then gently pushing it in. And like really gently, because I do not want the ball shaper to touch the clay, which it just has done twice. Yay! However, the joy of raw clay is it's quite malleable and I can smooth it out. There we go. Excellent. Yeah, that's looking good, looking good. And then we've got to put the chops in, and then I'll have to do the tail. Seeing, I just have to make him complete. Okay. Sorry. And there we go. All my wee cats, all my wee creatures, they are always looking up. Because that's how they look to me. You know, they're always sort of looking up towards me. Right, that's good. That's good. Look how cute is that? A little bit of flob management, of course, and that's actually a bit of ingrained flob, so yeah. That's it. Right, so I now just need to fix the ears in place with a little bit of the extender medium. And now he looks like, I don't know, a seal? Still very cute though. All right, and then just put them back where they were. And yeah, so you don't see much of the stripes coming up, but it makes sense. You know, again, it's that whole sort of internal consistency, logical consistency. You know, if a cat just looks as though it's just had things stuck on, or if a bear looks as though it's just had arms and legs stuck on without thought about the physics of them or the anatomy of them, that's just as important, and it's a hugely important element of design, but not everybody notices it or manages it, let's put it that way. Right. I'm just blending the clay in here. And I will finish off the ears. This actually makes them very strong. This is just a very thin layer of the extender medium, which forms a really, really firm seal, basically. But he's not a seal anymore, he's a cat, I hear you say. Yeah. And then by fluffing up the inner ears as well, that also helps to strengthen the bond for the cat ears. There you go. Wee soul. Wee soul. Right. And then the last thing, which I did last time as well, was actually just to make his tail. So I'm going to do that with this little bit of scrap clay, and because it doesn't need to be much, so I'm just using the tail end of whatever I was using for the ears. Move him to one side. Roll it out a little bit. And then cover. Actually, it can go that way. So yes, so the tail is also millefiori. Doesn't always look like that, but I try and get the little bits which are a bit stripy. But this one I do roll out to make it a complete join. And obviously it's much too thick just now with that extra layer on top. Just blending the edge, and by rolling it, you see how it's made the stripes much further apart. Well, that's what would happen if I rolled this cat through, you know, with my hands, did that with it. It would just ruin any stripes that there were. As it is, they're very faint now. It's not clear, but I quite like that as a finish. It's quite a nice effect, I think, just as well, really. Right, so just making sure that it's going to be long enough so that it can curl around, and that's probably about there. Slight angle, bit of extender medium, turn them over, get rid of the flob. It's quite a tenacious bit of flob. Oh, and I haven't signed them yet either. Right. And then that can just go at the base and lightly blend it in. There we go. Excellent, excellent. And then the tail comes round the body and onto his tummy. Love it, love it. Wee sweetie. There we go. Right, so we have a little lilac cat. Yay! So I just need to sign him now. So here's one of my tiny canes, which just gets smaller and smaller. I have no idea if you can see that, but it says QC in a very tiny font, or tiny design, I should say. So just cutting a very thin slice from this. I should probably put these under lock and key. Huh. And because that's the right way round, so I'm just going to put it onto his bottom that way. Lightly pressed in. And there's a little lilac fatty cat. Oh, yes. So I will be able to make another, what, 3 or 4 out of that cane, and then work inwards. So it'll be orange and it'll be blue and mint and all the rest of it. So week tomorrow, that's when I'm doing the shop event for them. But there are some little Easter chicks underway at the moment as well, so I'll have pictures of them tomorrow. But thank you so much for joining me. I'm so sorry that I don't know whether you, I hope you're here. And it's always a pleasure just to be able to chat to you. So I will be in touch tomorrow, and I'll put a proper picture of this little chap. But thank you for joining me. Bye.